Hello, friends, and welcome to Pinch O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle and Joy, and I've seen almost nothing.
And here we are to talk about Kipo Season 3, Episodes 7 and 8.
Hoo-ah!
Coming down to the wire.
Is that the noise I said I would make?
You said it was going to be a surprise, and it was surprising.
That was
good
surprising,
job.
right? Okay, and then I'm going to come up with maybe perhaps something else for next week, which will be the actual finale of the show, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Next week is going to be the finale of the show, and then followed by probably a quick wrap-up of what we're doing, and then we'll talk about what we cover after it, which we still haven't decided on, so I'm very excited to see what that's going to be.
Times.
It's going to be a little bit, we're doing it live, and that'll be great.
Okay, but we're not there yet. We're on episodes 7 and 8. Episode 7, Requiem for a Dave. Interesting title. Definitely had me intrigued. What is your summary for this episode, Joy? I'm very interested to find out.
I did have an idea of reading the Netflix summary for this episode because it's very funny.
Yes, the Netflix summaries are often very successful. Yes, the Netflix description says, as everyone regroups, Kipo blames herself for the damage done and springs into action. Enter Dave with a tale about fanatics and one awesome fan.
It was really good. It's a really good summary. It's not a summary. It's a teaser.
Well, yes.
It's a good teaser to like set up the episode. Like it doesn't really tell you what happens, but like I remember reading that, you know, as I was like preparing and I was like, oh, right, this episode, because of course I had seen it before. And I was like, oh God, I hope Danielle actually read that and was like, what?
I try not to read the summaries usually because I like to walk into an episode knowing literally nothing. Granted, the title kind of gave me the idea that we were going to get into a bit of backstory, which I mean, this episode was everything I wanted and more, resulting in not only a backstory for Dave, but also the story of how Dave and Benson met. Which is I still want to know a little bit more about Benson, but I'm still happy with what we got.
I love the idea that Benson grew up in we'll get there, but I can very quickly say, like, growing up in a tribe of people, cult.
I was going to say,
feels right.
Cult is definitely the word that came to mind, even if I don't know whether it's fair necessarily. But let's talk about that when we get to that point in the episode.
Yeah, like a techno cult. And I'm like, of course you grew up in a techno cult. Of course you did. Right. And that's why you love music and why you have like a Discman, you know, and like
but
a Walkman.
Also
and like
why
dying.
You just want to like buck the rules and expectations and, you know?
Because you were started by like a know-nothing, which all he wanted was a fan, and then he basically created an entire society where all they wanted was the fan, the faded fan. But yes, we'll get there. So we open with the humans running away from Kipo, and they take refuge in one of the stores where Kipo's parents are also foraging for supplies, and they are scared. They are very much like, oh, that was not at all what I was expecting. Why didn't the cure work on Kipo? What? Like, I didn't like what we did. You know, like it was
seeing that.
Not the victory they expected.
Trepidation and the fact that they're all starting to get just like a little bit more hesitant about the message that Dr. Amelia is sending, because I mean, I know that we discussed this a few podcast episodes ago, but the Burrow people, were just so quick to trust her because she caught them when they were scared, right? But they just took everything she said at face value. And now, just the more and more time they spend on the surface and the more they interact with other mutes, the more they realize, this woman has not been telling us the entire story. Meanwhile, Dr. Amelia is being an awful, ineffective leader because she's throwing a tantrum. She's just throwing a tantrum. Yeah.
It's the full on, like, when you challenge a narcissist.
Yeah.
And they can't handle it.
Exactly. She's like, how is this 12-year-old girl like undoing all of my intricate plans? If it weren't for those darn kids.
I know. It is it is a little bit that. It definitely has that feel of like if it wasn't for those darn kids. I like that I think it's Zane who is the one that's all about like, well, Dr. Amelia will have a plan. Dr. Amelia always has a plan.
Right.
And like Zane has been with Dr. Amelia as long as Greta has, like for a very, very long time. And to see her be that upset, I think shakes it shakes the newbies' faith, obviously.
Yeah.
But it definitely shakes some of the other people who have seen her the longest, including Kipo's parents, who are like, wow, if she's that mad, I guess Kipo won?
Right. I mean,
guess.
and Zane in kind of an interesting way. You know, there were a few times, and let's get into Zane right now, because why not? There were a few times during the episode where, you know, he's gotten close with a couple of the other mutes. What was the name of the raccoon in particular that he's close with?
Oh no, Label? I think it was Label.
Yes. He's gotten close with Label. They've got their little buddy. And so he starts pointing out to Dr. Amelia, like, not all mutes, basically. Like, they're not all monsters. Like, we can be reasonable with them, et cetera, and so on.
Like, but we can bond. I bonded with a, with a mute,
But the way that he was bringing it up and the way that he was approaching it, did it feel oppositional or rebellious? I genuinely think that he expected Dr. Amelia to respond to him rationally. Like, he kind of thought, walking into that conversation, that if I just tell Dr. Amelia and I just explain that I've been able to bond with some of these mutes, she'll come around and she'll meet me in the middle, which obviously is not what he got.
I had the impression that he was finally seeing how Dr. Amelia deals in absolutes.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way that I hate to compare them to rebellious children.
No, but you're right.
We are.
Honestly,
Zane and Greta are essentially her children.
Yes. Honestly, as you were saying that sentence out loud, my mind completed that sentence with, in the way a child finally realizes that the adults around them aren't perfect and that they make mistakes and that they aren't always going to compromise and meet you halfway or with grace or any of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is what I read by his tone there, right? Which was like, but then not all the time. And you expect that to be a conversation. And then when it isn't, because it's like, mommy told you to go to your room.
Yeah, it just blew up in his face.
And I love that journey for Zane. Like, I love, this is the thing that I wish more shows did, because there's a lot of, not to get too off on a tangent, but I think we have a little time.
This is a good tangent. We have a little time. We like this.
The thing that I really like in shows that get conflict and understand conflict, and that you can have characters who are flawed and different and don't always have all the answers or aren't 100% perfect, or like they have, the nitty gritty of these characters, right? Mm-hmm. There's always this conversation in fandom that it's like, well, you're not supposed to have a character who is insert undesirable something. Not to make it too serious, but like more, usually it's the more violent characters, or like an evil character who, Cruella de Vil comes to mind of like, she was planning on killing a bunch of puppies. That's pretty terrible. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, and there's this weird push in fandom to like not have bad people.
Oh, even when cast as villains?
Cast as villains, but I feel like people have like these lines that they don't want people to cross.
Killing puppies is pretty bad. Yeah.
But like I feel like a lot of people within fandom have this thing where it's like, there's this character and maybe they could be a bad guy, whatever, but like, I would like them not to cross this line. Mm-hmm. And I am of the opinion of like, if you're going to cross a line, create the environment within the show that signifies a line has been crossed.
Right.
And how the other characters react to that. Because we don't know, like, not everybody, I mean, not to jump ahead, but like not everybody sides with Kipo. There are some people who stay with Dr. Amelia throughout the course of these 2 episodes. Like, I like having that dichotomy of somebody who questions the person who crossed the line.
Right.
In canon.
In canon. Like, in canon, let's point to the line and make it a teachable moment. Because that's the way that you learn, right? If we just ignore all of this, then what are we really here for?
Yeah. And I think that's I mean, I am always here for the Corgies, but I'm also here for the proper conflict.
Yes.
But yeah, this was the conversation around a lot of shows that I grew up with or that have become problematic as I've gotten older. And I'm just like, well, the way you you don't fix the problem, but the way you kind of address the problem is like have an in canon answer for the reflection of, was this a good thing or a bad thing? Or does the society just accept this because we're not talking about it, you know? But anyway, that's why I really love Zane in these 2 episodes there. Yeah. There it is. So
me too.
Kipo's parents go back to the burrow. They realize what happened and like the devastation. And poor Kipo like runs in trying to help everybody, but of course she can't. Because it's like, it's just trauma everywhere you turn.
That very quick montage of everyone, of all of the mutes trying to, quote, socialize with their cured counterparts was so sad. I mean, like, Brad can't drive his taxi, Billions with the sweater, how he wouldn't put it on. That was so dog-like. I loved it.
I know.
But so perfect.
That poor dog is like, get this off of me.
I don't want to wear the sweater. Carton. Those are empty calories. You know better.
Carton, those are empty calories. What are you doing?
Oh my gosh. And just like what we were saying last week, these mutes are not the mutes they were before. Their personalities are gone. Gone.
Yeah.
They're just animals.
Which is
extremely upsetting. And so Kipo decides she is going to sink Dr. Amelia's boat. That is what it is. It doesn't matter who's on it. She's doing it because that's the only way that she can absolve herself of everything that's happened so far.
Look, I love a villain moment. I love the hero has like a bad thought and is just like, but this would be really easy.
Hey, listen, Kipo's an impulsive character. And sometimes when you act on impulses, some of them are impulses that can hurt other people.
Yeah. And I love that she doesn't stop to think of it because, again, as you said, everything that has come before to show us how she's an impulsive character, here is your payoff.
Yep.
Because she turns into a mega jaguar and she just goes. And her parents, of course, are extremely distraught of just like, well, we can't let her. I always love that it's like, we can't let her do this. It will destroy her. I'm like, there are human beings on that boat who will die.
Right. Like, are we not concerned about everyone you know and love being cast into the ocean by a giant jaguar?
Mrs. Graham is on that boat.
Mrs. Graham! With her cakes!
Mrs. Graham is on that boat. No,
there are children on that boat. Like, children who were not involved in any of this decision-making. Like, none of it.
As we see by Dogue in a second. But yeah, I love Dogue for that moment. But she turns into a mega jaguar. She's not thinking. She just goes, and the only thing on her mind is to destroy this boat. Now,
the brunch bunch.
The brunch bunch, yes.
That's how they're listed in my notes. The brunch bunch.
Yes. Yes, I'm so glad. I'm so glad it survived. I would like shirts with the brunch bunch on it. Do they exist? It's fine. We can look it up later. But so she goes running off. The brunch bunch chases after her on the giant mega mute dogs.
Wolf is kind of the boss of these dogs now.
Wolf is kind of the boss of these dogs now. We didn't get a chance to tell you.
Got caught up in all the action. Whoops. and in a truly fantastic Benson and Dave moment, Benson just throws the ball into Dave's court and he's like, Dave, you had a story you wanted to tell, right? And Dave just falls butt backwards into success. The way that Dave just so often does. Like, he really did not start out telling a story that he knew would end in a moral that was relevant to Kipo's decisions or the narrative.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. He was just talking.
Just telling a story. And again, but backwards, because I'm trying to, I mean, that's not super teacher filter, but it's close.
It's close. You're teetering on the line there, Danielle.
I'm on the line there. I definitely wouldn't say that around my kids.
I mean, we're not going to bleep it because I think it's funny, and because it sounds hilarious when you say it like that. I might start saying it that way because it sounds very funny. But anyway, we definitely get this story. Much like if you have friends who like to tell stories, it is where is this going? We don't even understand, and like. Dave launches into this, this isn't the first time mutes and humans have had a conflict. And he was there when the world as we know it fell.
Yes.
And he starts talking about how humans couldn't cope with the fact that mutes were like people. And they had
200 years ago.
200 years ago. And it was a very hot summer day in New York, was it?
Well,
or was the city?
I kind of like how Joy,
hot summer in the city.
Like you are correct. What was actually going on at that time is that the mutes are coming to his existence and the humans can't cope. But that's in fact not what Dave is focusing on in this story, because Dave doesn't really care about any of that. Instead, what Dave cares about is his handheld electric fan.
Because he's so hot.
So hot.
He just can't take it. Now, he finds this electric fan, and then there's another human there just like on a hill. And it's just like, hey, I want that electric fan.
I love the anime nods in this episode.
I
know. You.
There is a very specific kind of anime that it reminds me of. I'm not coming up with any names right now, but anyone who watches this episode will know exactly the kind of anime we're
absolutely.
About. And so what happens is this battle ensues. Dave holds on to his fan and becomes a hero to other Daves, and then Kipo's like, oh, there were other Daves?
I mean, there were a lot of reveals in this episode that I just have so many questions about. One of which is there are a ton of Daves, like a whole army of them.
Army of Daves. But Dave saves the day by getting a bunch of mega beavers to come and destroy the city.
By just doing the absolute most. Like, Dave, you don't destroy an entire city in order to get a handheld electric fan. Except that, of course, this is what Dave does. This is, in fact, what he does. He doesn't care about the city. He just wants his fan.
I love that that's your takeaway. It didn't even occur to me because it's such a Dave thing to do. I was like, well, of course Dave did that.
Of course he destroyed the entire city.
Of course he obviously. It makes perfect sense.
There's a question answered. How did that entire city get torn apart? Dave did it. Dave and the Mega Beavers.
Dave. The Mega Beavers, which didn't he? I forget what he said. Did you write down the quote where he was like, Mega Beavers are good people or whatever it was? I forget. It was like, he was like really chummy with the Mega Beavers, which I thought was kind of cute. So he tells that story and he's like, and that's the story of how I got my fan. And that ends. And then Benson comes out of nowhere. Kipo's like, where did Wolf and Benson go? And right. Benson's like, well, we needed a distraction, but now we're going this way. And they bring Kipo to her old burrow.
What a terrible first plan. Can we discuss in what world was this plan going to work? I don't actually think it makes any sense.
Here's my take.
Okay, I'd love to hear this.
And I'm not 100% sure that this is actually.
No, you often have a take on these things that it does make sense to me.
Well, so my take on it is these are two surface humans.
Yeah.
Who are not accustomed to being around other people. They're also not accustomed to staying in one place.
No sense of community. Very true.
Zero sense of community and what that means, right? So my brain is like, if Wolf's, like hidey hole that she had when she was 5 got destroyed, I don't know if she'd be sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? She would be like, well, that was a place I found when I was like 5. And yeah, I had a couple of weapons in there, but I mean, I've got a better weapon now. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they'd be practical about where they've been and how they travel. So I agree with you. It is a dumb idea. And I am glad it doesn't work. Right?
Yeah.
Like, because Kipo is not like that. Kipo has an attachment to where she grew up. And yes, she has an attachment to the people, but like, she understands what a home is, and she understands what, like, the walls were and the doors and the like the stores and where she went.
Right. I mean, I hear what you're saying. This plan to me felt like a plan that Wolf came up with. Like, this is absolutely what I would expect from Wolf. I have to admit, I expected better from Benson. I did. Just like a little bit.
You may not be wrong, because maybe she just wanted an excuse to do her amazing Mrs. Graham impression.
Exactly. I expected better from Benson, but maybe this was one of those times where Benson was like, I'm not, you know what, choose your battles. I'm going to let Wolf try this one thing. Because Benson does often give in that way.
This is true. I mean, I love how bad it fails, because the whole idea that Wolf and Benson have is like, but you love your people.
Right.
Right? And these are your people. If you sink the boat, that will be your people.
Right. And like, it's not just Dr. Amelia's army. Her army is made up of the people she knows and loves.
Yes. And like, finally someone makes that point.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the point you and I were making, which was like, I love that we don't care that all these people are probably going to die. And like, maybe that was what Wolf was attempting to do. Where it's like, no. There's all these people. And you care about people.
And I agree with their point. I just don't think that playing Burrow with Kipo is exactly the most effective way to get it across.
Oh, it was so bad. It was the worst possible thing they could have done. And so then Dave suddenly has like an epiphany of like, no, wait. Actually, I wasn't done telling my story. And like, he gets an idea to continue his story.
Which, like, I don't even know if this was an epiphany at this point yet. Or if it was more just, he wasn't done and he really wants to finish.
And he really wanted to keep talking. It might have been that. I don't know.
It's hard to say. By the end of the episode, I really do think he came around. But in the middle, like, things were a little bit more murky for me.
Yeah. But so he keeps telling the story, and because Daves are immortal, the grandson of the, well, we find out that Daves are not completely immortal because there's no more an army of Daves. But the I love that, like, the grandchild of this man who wanted a fan now has an army of his own and has come to fight the Daves. Yes. And they fight every day. Yes. Every day they fight. And sometimes they get the fan and sometimes the humans get the fan.
What a fantastic montage.
It was so good. It was a really interesting depiction of war in like a kid show.
Yes. That it's like long and pointless and people die, and for what? Right? Which is really the whole point of the thing. Right?
Yeah. The whole point of the thing is that, yes, this is pointless. You are fighting over a thing that does not matter.
Right.
It just really doesn't. Which also, by the way, the electric fan, where are you getting the freaking batteries for this thing? Really, someone should have held on to the batteries and been like, haha, I have all the batteries.
I got them. I mean, I'm sure they're just scavenging them from grocery stores, because we can still scavenge milk from grocery stores.
I know.
But, I mean, okay, so the story doesn't work immediately, right? Kipo keeps taking the wrong lesson out of the story. Like, you know, the second time through the story where we are seeing that 200-year montage, the lesson she takes away from it is that humans can't be allowed to wipe out another group of mutes again. And so, we gotta go. We gotta sink the boat. Because, I know that Dave doesn't show that he's sad or display any kind of upset about the fact that he's the last of his kind. But he's the last of his kind.
We do see, I don't think we see it with Kipo. We actually see it within the flashback.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's just him looking for sympathy, because that's 100% a Dave thing that would happen. Of like, he acts like it's like, oh, poor me, you know what I mean? But like, I think he is genuinely sad that he's the only one. Although, did you clock what he said?
What said?
When he reveals, okay, so he's telling his story. I'm not going to make that
mistake again, that part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which tells me he's the reason he's the only Dave left. Because a human tricked him into telling him how, because it's so stupid. We get that far. Yeah. Oh, man, it's so stupid. Dave's die in the stupidest way.
Yep.
And a human tricked him into saying how they die, and then they did it. They killed almost every Dave on the planet.
Yeah.
It is his fault.
That's such a Dave thing to do. It's such a Dave thing to do.
He fought valiantly, and he runs behind a wall. Because he's a coward.
He is. He absolutely is. And he's just kind of unthinking. And so, yeah, he absolutely would have given away his people's biggest secret without really giving a thought to how it could be used to hurt them. You know, he probably just thought it was funny. And then it really, really, really wasn't.
The biggest Dave mistake.
Biggest Dave.
Anyway. That was in sync for me.
Fantastic. So we, as discussed, we get closer and closer to the end of Dave's story, which accumulates. Wow, what word am I looking for?
Climaxes?
Comes to an ending. Doesn't matter. In a tiny human stealing his fan, and it's little Benson, who, by the way, lives in a cardboard box and is the last of his kind, just like
he's the last of the
Dave.
fanatics.
The last of the fanatics. I mean, this episode is littered with great montages, because we get a Benson versus Dave montage right here, where it's like trickster versus trickster, and they're each one-upping the other. And Dave is like, how is this little kid possibly getting the best of me? Until finally they end up just hanging from trees inside of nets that neither of them can untie.
That each of them has set for the other. And Benson is in a Dave net, and Dave is in a Benson net, and they each have their own knots, and they can't undo them.
And so they're forced to stop and talk and get to know each other, which ultimately is the lesson of this story, right? Like, exactly. If you pause and you think and you meet the other person where they are and get to know them as an individual, you might realize that the thing you've been fighting about this entire time is less important than keeping you both alive, right?
Exactly. And I like that it's also a very, it's like, it's not 100%, like the lesson comes and then the lesson gets reinforced.
Yeah.
Because as they, like cut each other down, Benson's like a kid. He's like, maybe even younger than Wolf when we meet Wolf. He's like
7
4?
Or
I mean, like, I don't, you would know kid age.
He's
you
like
would know
7
kid
or
age
8.
is better than me. Let's ask the teacher.
7 to 9 years old.
7 to 9 years old. But yeah, he drops, and he sort of drops. He doesn't quite drop on Dave, but Dave definitely disintegrates.
Dave, yeah.
He disintegrates into goo. And then, he goes to get the fan that they've been fighting over, this whole time. Because that was the plan, right? They're going to cut each other down, and then they're going to go back to the way things were. And then Dave is this vulnerable infant, baby, and he can't leave him. He has to take him. He has to and protect him, which is hilarious, by the way, because Dave is immortal. So it's
Benson doesn't know that.
Benson doesn't know that. I mean, I would protect a baby. 8-year-old me would protect a baby from walking into fire, I think.
And Dave is a very cute baby. This is absolutely baby. Some sort of evolutionary advantage or defense mechanism,
You may not be wrong.
That, like, the A,
But
that
yes.
he's a cute baby, and B, that he cannot be eaten.
Yeah. And this all culminates when they are
Culminate.
just
That's
off.
the word I was actually looking for.
Oh, was it? I'm sorry.
No, that's a great... No, I'm glad we came around to it.
At least we finally got there.
Full circle.
Got there.
Circle math.
I don't know circle math. It's 365. It's 360 degrees, so I'll be standing exactly where I am. I don't know circle math. It's one of my favorite Dave quotes. But so it culminates and they are standing like at the water's edge and they can see the boat and Kipo is still a mute and she's like been listening and she's been considering. And this is where Kipo actually, like, I think really hears what Dave and Benson and Wolf are trying to tell her.
Yes.
And because thank God Dave had a point. Because Dave is like, this is the story of how I met my best friend Benson. And then Benson is like, this is how I met my best friend Dave. Like, this happened out of war.
Mm-hmm.
So Kipo, in mega form, jumps onto the boat and then shrinks down.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, not like shoving her feelings down. Mm-hmm. This is the other thing I really love about Kipo is like when she feels genuinely. And like, even though she's like, she doesn't shove her anger down. When she's angry, she is just angry. And she's angry.
Yeah.
And she's, like, you came to my home and you hurt my friends. Mm-hmm. And I came here to do the same thing to your home and destroy it. But
everyone gasps.
Yes, it is a gasp throughout the ship of like, because she could. Yeah. There's nothing they could do. Absolutely nothing if she decided to destroy their boat. But she's like, what good would that accomplish? Because more humans one day could just come and try and take me down. Mm-hmm. And then more mutes would try and fight. And then we would fight over and over and over again. And it's like a cycle. It's the trick is not to play.
Yes.
The trick of the game is not to play.
and so instead of sinking the ship, what Kipo decides to do is invite them to prom, which takes us right to episode 8, Hidden Treasures. And I love that it's literally like episode 7, fade out, episode 8, fade in, and it's just picking up right where we left off.
Exactly where we left off. We are still on the boat.
Which is a party reconciling all humans and mutes. Prom.
PRAHM.
Uh-huh.
And I love that it's like that in the subtitles. Because like the episode 7 ends and it's like, they misspelled prom. And then it starts up again and it's like, oh, I guess they didn't.
They did not. It was purposeful. So it's an evening of music and food. Everyone's kind of getting into it. Everyone's kind of excited. One of my favorite moments from the beginning of episode 8 is when Dr. Amelia tries to get everyone back to her side. And she's like, this is clearly a trap. Who throws a party in the middle of a war? And literally 7 people go, Kipo.
Kipo.
And it's not even like just the brunch bunch who says Kipo. It's like, it's her burrow people because they know her.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, Kipo would in fact do something like this. And so, like, I would say easily 2/3 of the burrow, led by Dogue at first is one of the first people to back her up. And then Dogue's like very cool friends who I love and are like way too cool for me. Then Zane. And then after a few people back Kipo up, like 2/3 of the burrow people end up shifting sides. And Dr. Amelia is left with a pretty small crew. It's like her, Hogue, Greta, and then like 4 other people, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very obvious that most people have decided to physically go with Kipo. And what's interesting here is like Dr. Amelia is going to try and buy herself time because she's like, sure, we'll be there. But she doesn't go with Kipo.
No. Which was sketchy. Very, very, very sketchy. And we're going to have to skip
Scarlemagne
around
and Wolf
a little.
clock that.
Immediately. I love that this is how Scarlemagne and Wolf bond. I love it. And listen. I do think they had some minor bonding moments a few episodes ago when Wolf was doing that whole, because I'm a good person. Deep.
Yes.
Deep down. And they kind of clocked each other as kind of on an even playing field. But this episode really, really solidified their relationship.
I love their dynamic. It's like two really beautiful,
and then like
terrible
Kipo's
people.
Fourth wall breaking of it, where at first she's so excited and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you bonded!" And then 3 seconds later is like, "Or maybe you just bring out the worst in each other."
Maybe you just bring out the worst in each other. Oh no!
Because it's little column A, little column B.
Yeah.
Listen, they're not wrong. Like I don't know that Wolf made the right decision in going behind Kipo's back, because that never feels good to me.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Amelia has a plan, and it is a scary, scary plan.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't have a plan immediately. She comes up with a plan.
But they knew that she would do that, and they knew that she would get
do
there
something,
quickly, because Dr. Amelia is brilliant. We've said this so many times, but she is so smart. Like, she had to take...
she's thinking 7 steps in front and beyond everybody else.
She had to take episode 7 to have her feelings and throw her tantrum, but, I mean, she turned it around very quickly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She definitely does. Actually, why don't we say what Dr. Amelia is doing? Because it's sort of the B plot in this episode.
Yeah, I'm a little unclear on it, if I'm being honest. I mean, it might be one of those things where it's like, and then they scienced a cure, but I'm a little unclear on it.
Yeah, I mean, again, the science in the show is kind of a little, it's a little loosey-goosey.
Uh-huh.
What essentially Dr. Amelia decides to do is, like, they're out in the ocean and she's, like, thinking through different options. And Hogue is, like, trying to figure out, where her head's at. And she kind of doesn't answer, and she's just sort of looking at the horizon. And then a Megamute, as they so often do, comes to attack the ship. And instead of having Greta, like, try and shoo it away, she welcomes it towards the boat. And what she does is she takes a blood sample from this Megamute, then cures the Megamute, because of course.
Right.
Of course she does.
And then it's just like a cute little walrus instead of a mega two-headed scary thing.
I know, that poor little walrus was like, oh, I am much smaller now. And then, like, dove back into the water.
Okay, but I think what I'm unclear on is what exactly is going to be done with that blood sample, which I'm very happy to just wait and find out, because she says,
that's fair.
Like, she says at the end of the episode, we can't fight a mega jaguar without our own mega, which I'm like, but actually what I thought she was going to do with the blood sample was going to be to make a cure that was not infused with Kipo's DNA so that it would actually be effective on Kipo. But then she's like, we're making our own mute. And I was like, well, I don't know what it is, and I guess we're just going to have to wait and find out.
I love your idea. I wish they had also done that, actually. I wish there had been at least an attempt to try and be like, well, okay, the first cure didn't work, but let's try and reverse engineer something else.
Right, because why does Kipo have to be X? I don't think well, I mean, the reason I don't get that is because they scienced the cure, right? But in that's the first place
the science
my brain
happens off screen.
Yeah, it happens off screen. Did it really happen if it happens off screen?
Yeah, exactly. Does a tree fall if no one's around to hear it? But like, so what she's getting at.
Sorry, what I heard in my head was, it's really unclear.
It was kind of unclear.
Okay,
really
sorry.
Unclear. No, it's okay. Can I say how many times I feel like we've said that this season, and we've really touched on it, but we haven't quite said it. Like, we've gotten close. We've like dipped our toes into it's kind of unclear. Fringe season, for those of you who have been with us for that long. The idea behind it, I think, and the reason she doesn't go for a cure for Kipo is because this has become now a vendetta of, like, Kipo hurt her and hurt her reputation and hurt her impression of mutes and hurt everyone else's impression of mutes. And, like, Kipo challenged her And so now I think she feels like that challenge needs to be answered. And the thing of it is you don't have Dr. Song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have Dr. Song Oak. But what you do have is a bevy of giant megamutes, and maybe you can reverse engineer something to make a human into a megamute when they already have that antigen within them.
Right, like bring her own champion to the table, as it were. Right? So, yeah, that makes sense to me. I just, for the entire episode, thought it was going in a completely different direction. Because speaking of hurting Kipo, like, I do think that curing Kipo is one of the worst things that you could do to her. Because she would just feel so utterly useless. Like, you could do that.
Even though she's, like, ridiculously smart and optimistic and a naturally born leader.
But you could do that, and then you could take out all her mute friends. And there's nothing that she would be able to do to stop you. Which clearly I went to a much more evil place than Dr. Amelia did. Whoops, whoops.
Right. Well, but, like, I mean, even that, if she still had the support of the humans around her, I think your like timeline would have 100% worked. Mm-hmm. But like, because Kipo is who she is, and because, that raid didn't go the way they expected, it's you expected to be liberating people. Yeah. And it's like, but that's not what you did. You took people away from them. Mm-hmm. And I wish we had kind of had at least an attempt of that and had that fail. But, like, again, we only have so many episodes.
True. We're down to 2 20-minute episodes. Ah!
I know. I promise. I don't know if it'll be actually satisfying, but there is at least a bow at the end to, like, the things come together. I'm not going to tell you what the things are, but they come together. They are. Absolutely not. So,
okay. That's the B plot.
So that's the B plot.
Uh-huh.
And everyone else is working on a giant float to do a promposal.
They are building a float. Which, I mean, let me just say, skipping to the end of the episode, for some reason, this worked. And was viewed as a genuine apology. But I don't think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think it's really hard to read a giant float and singing and dancing as any kind of, mea culpa.
No, it's extremely tone deaf.
It's not supposed to be. I don't think that their apology should be fun. Which I know is counter to the spirit of the show, and that's why the show did this, right? There had to be a part of this episode that was fun and upbeat, because the Dr. Amelia part of this episode sure was not, right?
Yeah.
And so, fine. Like, I'm happy to see the team build a float, but man, that shouldn't have worked. I almost wanted their promposal to, like, fall absolutely flat, for all of the mutes to be, like, insulted that the humans would think this could work, and then for Kipo to have to give an actual heartfelt apology. Kipo or anyone else who is with her. Like, Kipo and all of the other humans. Because...
yeah, like, all the humans needed to genuinely apologize. I mean, they
shot the mutes with their crossbows. Like, this isn't even... This was in no way was this like, oh, we were on our boat and we didn't realize what was happening. Like, they were holding the crossbows. Most of them. Yeah. I don't think that Dogue was, but a lot of them were.
No, Dogue wasn't even there.
Yeah.
Which, side note, that's one of my favorite things, that Hogue comes back. Yeah. And Dogue is just like, you did the thing.
Yeah.
How dare you do the thing? Mm-hmm. And Hogue is like, but I did it for you. And it's like, you didn't do it for me. And she's such a beautifully mad, popular teenager girl. Like the popular teenager. And she's so mad and like so beautiful.
And she's right, because he's not actually trying to protect anyone. He's acting out of self-preservation, and he's doing everything he's doing because he's scared. He's scared of mutes.
And because Dr. Amelia told him this is what we would do. This is what we would do, and we would get our world back.
Yep.
And so that's what he's trying to do, and it sucks. And I just love that his daughter read him for filth.
Oh, it's fantastic. Okay, so the
really
long
good.
and short of it is they build the float.
They build the float, and then so the C plot is Scarlamine and Wolf being like, Dr. Amelia has to be taken out.
Yeah.
But we have to, like, figure out how to do that. And then the whole thing, which we kind of already touched on with, like, they approach Kipo to try and figure out how to do that. And they because of the D plot, which is ADD squirrels.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like there's a hidden fourth or fifth plot here. The treasure squirrels, oh my gosh, like very Dory from Finding Nemo. I'm not upset
beautiful
by
ADD
them.
squirrels.
I think they're great.
They're so perfect.
Just absolutely no working memory. But they did remember that they found a treasure. And they did remember that they had the float, which is kind of funny.
They remembered the object. They couldn't remember what they did with the object, which as someone with ADD, I appreciate. Because so often will I be like, oh no, I had a thing. What did I do with the thing? I put it somewhere important. But I don't remember where that important place is.
And then it's like the giant oak tree that's stuffed
with giant
to the brim
acorns.
With giant acorns. Like, so good. Megafauna. Did you know there is megafauna and flora? I guess now we really, really know. There's megaflora.
I love that there's megafauna and flora. I have questions about your ecosystem, but I am also super here for it. But anyway, so like the squirrels have absolutely zero memory. They're so hard to even just talk to because they forget 5 seconds in front of their face.
Yep.
So the Kipo gets really frustrated, and like eventually they're like, it's by this giant tree. They dig up the giant tree, and then Kipo like does a thing where like she vibrates the ground to get the acorns to spill out, except they spill out too fast, and it's an avalanche of acorns that are as big as like houses.
Boulders, yeah.
Yeah, they're huge. And Scarlamine and Wolf are like running away, and they end up cornered. And Kipo, in like pure gymnastics fashion or whatever, like runs, jumps, makes herself tiny, and then like throws them out of the way at the last second and gets clobbered by all of these acorns.
Right.
And they're so concerned. They're like, oh my God, Kipo, like this could kill her if she's just in her human form. And they like uncover her, and she's like loopy and smiling and laughing. And it's just like, oh my God.
Oh, Kipo. And this ultimately is what leads to Scarlamine running away, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the connection that they make. Like, Kipo is so constantly thinking about other people, she never considers her own safety. And Scarlamine is like, listen, the only reason she's not focused on Amelia right now, and the only reason it hasn't occurred to her that Amelia is 6.5 steps ahead of us, is that she hasn't stopped to think about anyone other than the Burrow people and the mutes, and making sure that the Burrow people and the mutes are safe. And so Wolf agrees to let him go, and that's kind of where the episode ends, right? Like, the humans have sung and danced their apology. They've proposed to various mute groups. For some reason, it works. The mutes are in, and then Kipo realizes that Scarlamine isn't there.
Yeah.
And that awful moment of disagreement between Wolf and Kipo, which we haven't seen very often in this show, is the note this episode ends on.
And, you know, we sort of end with Wolf also kind of running off screen, which we assume either to follow Scarlamine and help him, you know, or to just get away from Kipo because, you know, they're in a disagreement. I think Wolf has this sort of, not epiphany, but I think she doesn't want to lie to Kipo, right? Because she's kind of learned that like keeping things from Kipo is bad.
Yeah.
But she also, and it's not that she can, like, it's the lie of omission, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's until Kipo asks about Scarlamine, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
And kind of strategically, that was just the amount of time Scarlamine needed to get away.
Exactly.
Right? Because now it's too late for Kipo to run and stop him because she doesn't know where he's gone or what he's doing. I mean, she's giant. She could, in theory, chase after him, but it's been a minute. Like, they've been traveling around to various mute groups and singing their song Apology over and over and over again.
Which didn't, it's a little bit like Game of Thrones last season.
Yeah.
Where it's like, all of a sudden you can just travel across the plains in a day, in less than a day, in a half a day, because you spent the other half of the day finding your float under a bunch of acorns.
Maybe the headcanon is that all of the mutes got upset and they all left Timbercat Well, no, the Timbercat stayed in Timbercat Village and made the humans leave, which I thought was pretty funny. But that the mutes just kind of like tramped off to a quiet corner rather than going all the way home. That's the best. That's the best way I can rationalize it, because otherwise you're right. It's very last season.
It's very like, what is happening?
What is happening?
It took you all season to meet all of these mutes. And yet and now you're, now it's fine.
I can't believe that song worked on the mutant wolves in particular. Like, I could see that song working on the Timbercats, because the Timbercats would be like, oh my gosh, they tried, And I could see
the Timbercats are the closest to friendly mutes that we get on a whole.
Maybe on like the raccoons, just because they get into the music and are like, yeah, and don't really have strong feelings about the situation. But the mutant wolves,
I know.
I don't know.
It's kind of a lot. So there's here's a quick little tangent before we do One More Things, which I think we're just about at One More Things. But there's a musical called Prom, which is hilarious to me because it's called Prom. And there's a song in Prom. Really quickly, the story of Prom is a lesbian going to high school in, I think it's Indiana, and no one else is out. It's very like, she's super ostracized, and all she wants to do is ask her girlfriend to prom. But the thing is there's a whole hullabaloo of like, is she even invited to prom? Because she's gay, and like it will cause an upheaval, right? Yeah. And everything. So a bunch of Broadway stars who need a pick-me-up because they're all narcissists decide to go down there and try and quote-unquote help her get to prom.
Amazing.
Because they want to do something good for themselves so they can feel good.
Okay. Yeah.
And what's amazing to me, and this isn't in the movie, the adaptation of the movie kind of cut this song out, which is fine. I understand why they did it. But there's a song in this show that is an attempt to be like, heal the world, like that Michael Jackson song. Yes. Like, it tries real hard, but it is not that song. And it is like uncomfortable and like, thanks, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, it feels very, very weird. And this felt like that. This song felt really uncomfortable. Like, why are you smiling? And like, why is the refrain, we messed up? I'm like, guys, no.
I 100% agree. This is one of the rare moments in the show where I just kind of felt too
like they
much.
Phoned it in or something.
It was, it was a feeling very close to secondhand embarrassment. Like, very close to when you're like very close to when you're watching a show that features a bad date and you're just like, I can't be here right now because I've been here before and I don't want to do it again. And so you just kind of like pick up your phone and look at your phone while the scene plays out. I picked up my phone and looked at my phone as this song and dance routine was happening. Like, I couldn't sit and just stare at it. Didn't work for me.
Oh, although we should mention that there is a really adorable promposal.
Well, I was going to say, is that your one more thing? Because it could be.
It's no, I have a couple of ridiculous one more things.
Which okay.
I have. But yes, Troy and Benson are going to prom together, and it was really super cute.
Benson finally invites Troy. First of all, can we discuss how, I think it was the opening of, I can't remember if it was the opening of episode 7 or episode 8, but remember how on the last podcast episode, I was like, where's Roberto? Why isn't he
Oh,
here?
I know.
And the episode literally opens with him helping out some of the other mutes. And I'm like, there he is. And here he is again at the end, which, like, I love this, like, supportive dad. Where,
I know. Me too.
Like, Benson
Roberto,
finally
the real
invites
MVP.
Troy. And Troy is like, well, I was just about to invite you. And then he just kind of, like, waves his dad away because his dad is in the background, like, holding this bouquet of flowers. Like, I'm here. You know, like, it's so cute.
I know. I love it. I love it. I love the trio. I love the supportive dad of his 2 gay sons. Like, yeah. I'm really here for it. I'm super here for it. We'll die for the 3 of them.
So good. Okay, what are your one more things? Two more.
Two one more things. They're pretty quick. Okay. Brad and Yum.
Yes.
Because Brad is a rat on a very tiny little, sort of adventure park thing.
Made out of, like, Solo cups and toothpicks. It was great.
And Yum comes out of the brush and totally jumps on Brad. And they have to be like, no, Yum, no. Like, literally hurting cats. I thought it was brilliant. I was like, thank you, because if you have a rat that's just there doing rat things, yes, the house cat is going to do a thing.
Mm-hmm. Destroy the structure and then chase the rat.
Yes. And then my other one more thing is just the fun Gus cameo.
Yes. So good.
I love that it doesn't work on Fun Gus at all, and he essentially chases them away because I'm sure he just wants friends to play with.
Fun Gus and I are one in this. Fun Gus and I are in agreement.
No, those are my one more things. What about you?
I mean, mine was probably going to be the Troy Benson promposal because of course it was.
Is it not Dave attaching himself to Kipo's face?
That was pretty good. It might also be, like, the reasons that Scarlemagne and Jamock join in on the promposal to begin with, which is where Scarlemagne says, well, every prom needs a king. And then Jamock jumps in with, and, I've already got my suit on, so... And they are just, like, the least enthused members of the promposal. Like, least enthused. I
did, like, we can't spend another hour talking about Scarlemagne, but, like, I love that Jamock and Scarlemagne, like, the 2 of the, what could have been arguably the biggest villains in the whole show.
Yeah.
Right? Like, Jamock really could have, like, torn things apart, but he didn't. They are the ones who stay in Hamufa.
Yes.
When everyone else leaves. And this is, like, part of that evolution, especially for Scarlemagne, because let's face it, Scarlemagne had a bigger road to hoe there.
Oh, sure.
Jamock was just kind of in with the wrong crowd.
Fair. But Scarlemagne started with
in the theaters.
Scarlemagne started with the idea that Kipo is his sister, and Jamock had to build that.
Right. True. True. But yeah, I mean, and Scarlemagne, like, time and time again, got the incorrect impression of Kipo. Mm-hmm. Of like, well, she'll just side with me because she's a mute. And it's like, that's actually not how that works at all.
And now he's on her side.
And desperately trying to protect her, which we'll see how that goes next episode.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait.
And on that note.
And with that, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, how would you prompose? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/clockpod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.